Welcome to Facehammer. We're going to talk about General's Handbook, Auxiliary Objectives, alternative Luminef list without Techless, and we're going to talk about Terry's excellent Slaanesh army that he's just finished and show you some cool pictures. Welcome to Facehammer, episode 89. It's me, Russ the Face. I'm joined by the usual suspects.
How's it going, man?
Hello.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Thanks for coming on. So it's taken us a while to get going, but we're here now. So before we get into the main show topics, which are going to be the Luminef non-Techless list, the auxiliary objectives, and also we're going to look at Terry's Slaanesh army, which if you watch on YouTube, you can see in the background in his video with some pictures and talk about how he went about painting it. But before we get into the main topic, we just thought we'd have a little bit of a catch up on some of the stuff that's been going on recently.
Warhammer news.
Yeah, in a way, because we've just had the GHB2020 Luminef FAQ and errata drop, haven't we?
Yeah, that's, I think, was it yesterday that it dropped? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I did see a little bit of noise on Twitter, but I tend to not look at noise on Twitter.
I know that the schedule is to have one come out shortly after a book, but it's a bit of a weird time for anything to happen. It's still got to happen, but it's not like there's mass opportunities for people to test this in like cross borders, international environments or anything like that. So it's kind of an unprecedented circumstance, isn't it?
Particularly with the Luminef, because obviously a lot of the models aren't out yet. But to be honest, a lot of the FAQs and erratas, like the play testers, because of the lead time of a release of a book and when we do it, and then when the book comes out, there's games that people have played in the playtest team between the shut off and when we're allowed to feedback and when the FAQ is published. So it is still based on some feedback. It's not just we've released it 2 weeks and there hasn't been a chance. But obviously it's a bit different because normally we can see what the wider world's doing, but I think some people have been playing with proxies and putting stuff on, TTS
thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think there's been a few things that have happened that we've been able to take into account, but so I think one of them, there isn't really anything jaw-droppingly amazing in there, I don't think, Les. I mean, if I'm a Luminef player, did you spot anything that really stuck out to you? I saw some weird stuff about that Aether prism thing and a unit casting it, but
It's, I think a lot of it was just clarifying the intent, wasn't it? A lot of the time. Obviously, the I can't remember the name of it.
This is
with regards to the Aether prison.
Yeah, the Hish thing. Yeah, I don't know what it's called. Yeah.
I've literally lost it. It's gone completely out of my head. I mean, it's just like clarifying stuff and making sure that people are playing like rules as intended. I did see some stuff thrown up that wasn't covered, but I think that's self-explanatory, like whether or not the unit counts as a wizard with regards to re-rolling their armor saves with cogs.
Right, I see.
No,
it's one model, isn't it?
The wizard.
The champion in it, yeah.
So, so it's not like it doesn't get re-roll its armor save because it's not the unit isn't a wizard. The champion is a wizard when there's 5 or more models in the unit. I mean, that's my interpretation on it, but like that's not been addressed in the FAQ, but that's how I'd be playing it. Like, I wouldn't be using the entire unit to.
There's been some confusion about the Shining Company as well, hasn't there? So because some
how it's sort of like,
because you've got to set up touching the base of 2 different models, haven't you? And then that means you're in the Shining Company, but then you can't run or charge. So if you set your models up in the Shining Company, you couldn't then run out of the Shining Company formation. You could move out of it, and then next turn you could run, and you could move out of it and then charge, but you couldn't run out or charge out of the formation. Essentially, is how it works.
You set up the unit. It stays in Shining Company, and then it stays in the company until you choose to either move it out of the Shining Company, which is the base-to-base contact, or if there's been wounds allocated to it, so you can then remove the models, which then you choose then to sort of like break the Shining Company rule because of like wound allocation. You can sort of like drop the models out of the unit, and then that way it would maybe not be in Shining Company then. But otherwise, it's a case of you can't be in the Shining Company and not in charge or run. So
Yeah, and the I know there was a few people that were talking about the GHB, what's legal like for match play, pitch battle. And I think it essentially, like, there's some stuff that was in YouTube, I think, like Hostess Celeste and things like that, which are sort of white dwarf articles, and I think those are no longer legal for pitch battle unless your opponent agrees, according to the FAQ errata.
So there's been quite a bit of confusion, Russ, as far as you understand it. What is the hard and fast rules that people can apply to know whether it's a yes or a no, basically?
Essentially, if it's in a publication, it's okay. So, like, Forbidden Power's got Legion of Grief, so that's still in the handbook, so it's still got a table around the spells. So because Legion of Grief's in the handbook, so in Forbidden Power, which has then got a table in the handbook, that's still okay. Whereas things like the Hostess Celeste, I'm usually using that as the only one I can think of, but like a White Dwarf Allegiance or formation or box game formation that doesn't have points in the General's Handbook, those are actually not match play legal. It says that the FAQ wording is something like you need permission from your opponent or a house rule. So effectively a TO could say they are okay, but I would imagine that standard they wouldn't be. If you're playing,
it kind of makes sense, right?
Book. Yeah, I mean, if you can't get hold of it, it's a bit like when they did the Start Collectings, they started having formations in those, didn't they? And then they weren't. Yeah. You couldn't get them unless you had the box set.
And the store model, wasn't it? The Mortality Glass, Nighthaunt character that was really, really good. Like, because it's not widely available for everyone to go and buy it, then as soon as they make it non-General's Handbook legal, they did, because, like, not everyone has access to a birthday model from the GW store to be able to use it, which makes complete sense.
Yeah, so that's it really, and we're not going to go into too much detail on that. I think I just want to say that I was going to give a shout out to Gammy on Twitter, who said he's been playing Legion of Night, the list that we talked about in the last show, and he's changed it up slightly. He's put cogs in it and he's dropped some of the skellies.
That's a good idea.
So he said it's quite interesting. There's a lot of people saying they think the list is quite interesting to play with, and he said it's got quite a nice balance to it. So hopefully there'll be an event where someone can take it to and see how we get on at some point in the future. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
You mean when you take it to an event in the future? Yeah.
No,
you're going to cave at some point. You're going to cave. I can see it. You get like this little glint in your eye every time you talk about it. I can see that. Yeah.
No, I'm not doing it.
It's like when there's that last donut left in the Krispy Kreme box, and you're like, I'm not going to eat it, but you know that donut's getting it. We know that Russ is
going to
make it sound like I eat loads of donuts.
2 o'clock in the morning. He's going to sneak up and he's just going to start building skeletons. 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I was going to like break into a Krispy Kreme at 2 in the morning. Like trying to.
I mean, that could have been an actual.
Why did they start locking the bins? No.
like a raccoon.
Damn you, Krispy Kreme! No.
Raccoon stealing donuts from Krispy Kreme in Swindon.
Oh, I'm never going to forget that. That's so good. I'm getting you a onesie.
Yeah, like a raccoon onesie is pivotal to that plan to make you look unsuspicious, like you know what you're doing.
Raccoon onesie.
Russ the donut raccoon veal. Yeah, write it down.
I'm on a diet. I'm eating donuts.
If we get enough retweets for this podcast when it goes live, then we will
make like below if you want to see Russ in a raccoon onesie.
Yeah.
Give us a comment. Let us know your favourite animal that Russ should have a onesie of.
The internet is a dark place, and there are people out there that do this sort of thing for some other reason other than fun. I don't really want those to attract that following of those sort of people. So,
everyone's definition of fun is different, Russ, especially after lockdown.
For those watching, you can see the smirk on Terry's face because he's going to the dark place in his mind.
He's just thinking about unveiling his tiger outfit from underneath his bed. He's like, do I get this? Is it time? It's a Dalmatian suit, isn't it?
Terry's sex panther.
I don't actually know where my tiger onesie is, to be fair. I'll have to have a little look round.
I rest my case.
Like it. Comment below if you want Terry to be
Terry the
sex
sex
tiger.
tiger.
Next recording.
This has gone off the rails quickly, hasn't it?
Tiger.
That's fine.
It's too hot for a tiger onesie in here at the moment.
They just go commando. And we also should talk about we talked about that Luminef list from Peter, and he said that one of the things we didn't mention was that speed of hish is quite important to get extra range on the bows.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the list that he sent didn't have the the list that I was sent didn't actually have all of this spell allocation.
No, so I did tell him that, yeah, because we didn't have the spells, we just had to fill those in.
But yeah, I suppose it makes that threat range even more scary than with that one unit when you want to kill a hero. 12-inch move shooters.
Byron, your Iron Jaws list, Hawkeye 951 on YouTube said that the Gorgrunner move isn't pre-game, it's beginning of hero phase. Correct.
Yes, it's beginning of the first hero phase. Yeah. So you get to do it's basically a one and done one, and he's completely right. Generally speaking, with that list, I was going for trying my best to be the first person to go anyway. So I like spaff my load first turn, but it's definitely got a lot of potential, particularly if you go absolutely like 100% in on low drops, super aggressive. You take that first turn and you just try and crash into people like a hairy wave.
And we spoke about I spoke about the KO list, and I said about difficult to get a one drop list together. Actually, I wrote a one drop KO list, which I think is quite cool. It's based around the Iron's command, whatever it's called, Iron Sky command formation. But essentially, because you can have up to 3 units of engine riggers, it's 3 units of 6 engine riggers and ironclad and some characters, and then I've got the endless spell Everblaze Comet. You could change it out for a Demon Rift or a Bellwind Vortex, the Warp Lightning Vortex from Skaven.
Yeah.
And then you can use the Barak Zilfin move to get within range to drop that, because you can move in the hero phase with Barak Zilfin, so you could have the Aether Chemist on the boat, fly high, drop the boat in your hero phase, but then you could unleash the Warp Lightning Vortex very close to them because it's an 18-inch range. Is it wholly within 13 now? I think it was 26 and it lowered to wholly within 13, the first one, and then but you can be 9 away from them and then drop the Vortex on them, and then
that's a lot of reach.
In the movement phase you could move away and then shoot them, and then you've got the when you do that move in the hero phase, you could use the Hitcher's rule to pull a combat unit of engine riggers and the character forward, and then you could have 2 units with long range guns, so like double up the drill cannons and blasters, so you've got 4 24-inch range guns with a 12-inch move, so it's a 36-inch threat with the engine rigger units, and then you've got 20 Arcanauts in the list as well, which sit in the ironclad, so they can like plop out and move and shoot all their pistols as well, because you can get those in range. So I think for an alpha strike it'd be quite nasty. I'm not sure whether the Demon Fire Rift would be better, or the Comet, or the Vortex, but I think the Vortex potentially does more damage, especially if you could pin something.
The Comet's a really good one for giving your opponent a horrible situation. It's just a proper, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't position to put them in, and particularly backed up by the amazing varied ranged capabilities of the shooting. And with 3 units there, you've got, like, you can have a go at killing something exactly, miss it by 1 wound, go on to the next unit, go on to the next unit. They're really, really good for that, and it plays to the strengths of KO, which are fairly limited. So you may as well, I think. I think it sounds really cool. And one drop is rare these days, especially in Order.
So I wasn't around last week. What's allowing you to cast the Warp Lightning Vortex?
So there's a artifact in the Cadron book called Spell in a Bottle that you can give to an Aether Chemist.
Does it allow you to get round the requirement for casting though? Because Warp Lightning Vortex is only a Skaven Tide Wizard can cast it, so it gets around that.
It gets around that restriction. Okay. So you can put any spell in your army and cast it automatically. It can't be unbound.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Renegade versus like it's the most obvious ones are like fairly expensive, like 80, 100 point things, dump them, damage people, and then like if they win priority, you're still going to send it back in their face, which is why the Stormcast one's scary.
I still think the Warp Lightning Vortex is the best choice because you can get in range with the hero move with Barak Zilfin to drop it where you need it to be, and it is devastating for what it does.
It's disruptive.
It's so disruptive to their army.
It's a really high cast as well, which means it's an absolute pain to get rid of.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. I think Kieran Harper used to always take the Comet in non-Zilfin lists, and I used to think it was really, really good. It depends. I do think that when you've got that move to be able to get in range to cast the Vortex, it definitely synergizes better with Zilfin. Because like the 36-inch range on the Comet, you kind of don't need to be. It kind of like more utility.
You get that regardless.
You take the Vortex, So I think that would be quite good. It also, like Byron said, Comet makes people deploy weird because most people want the heroes together to to bunk up or support each other. You can't be like Comet flicking, where you do get lucky and you kill the entire heroes.
The only issue I've got with the Comet is that you normally want to do it when you go second, and you want to do it so you get a double bubble on it, and you want to dispel it, then cast it, but you can't cast it again. So it's more expensive. It's 100 points, not 80. So I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference because you're going to come in. Well, the list comes in about 50 points cheaper than it is, and that's with an admiral in it as well. But you could upgrade one of the other heroes to a second engine master bobble guy. But it's okay. I mean, I think it's. I wouldn't want to build. I have built 18 engine riggers anyway, but I wouldn't want to build like the army from scratch because it would be a nightmare. But it would be I think it would be quite an interesting list to play with.
It look cool as well. Like the nice thing about having all of the spells that we've mentioned look sweet. I know that's not why we've mentioned them, but the Comet looks amazing. The Vortex looks amazing, and having a load of little cool guys, this massive ship. And then a blob of 20 dudes. It's a pretty cute looking elite force, isn't it?
Yeah, the only issue that you'll have is you won't get any A for gold for the engine riggers because they're not units of 10. They are battle line though, so a 12-inch moving flying battle line unit that's pretty pokey, but they've only 12 wounds in the unit, so it's quite light on wounds. So you are reliant on doing the damage at range. But I think the mistake a lot of people make with these things is they launch them forward and actually they got a 24-inch range, and you should just back away and shoot and use your longevity of the game. Again, you've only got one ironclad, but you can the 20 Arcanauts can sit on well. The healing in the army is amazing, so you could
it's so cool, right? You just lob it in the middle with a vortex and just stand back and
if you wanted to. I mean, it's difficult for the engine riggers to keep up with the ironclad because you can only take 7. So you take one unit of 6 and a hero. But they've got a 12-inch move, so you can use up a second wave. And you normally got to go for some objectives anyway. But it's okay. But I might try that out at some point. So I just wanted to mention that list because we talked about it. I said, it's difficult to get one, but there is a formation that kind of fits it pretty much bang on.
Yeah, you can paint that one after the skeletons then, so we'll hear about it in a couple of months.
No, I'll be painting KO. I think I'm gonna get the army finished that I've got, and actually gonna make sure I've got that variant list, the other variant list, and there's a frigate list I want to do as well. So I'm gonna basically end up with quite a large force, but I've already got most of it. I just have to get a few extra bits.
It doesn't hurt.
Yes, there's quite a few lists I've been toying around with. But we just want to say before we get into the main topics that obviously we've been putting stuff on YouTube. So if you're listening to this and you want to support us, just going on there, subscribing, giving us a couple of likes, a comment, or just watching some of the videos. A lot of it's the same content you'll hear in here. But obviously we'll be able to put the list up on the screen, and when we talk about Terry Slaanesh, there'll be pictures of the models. So listening to it audio wise is probably not going to be as good as watching it as a video. So check us out on there, help support us. We will be doing some YouTube specific content, which will be more around the sort of traditional YouTube video format, but that'll come in later date. We're just getting us trying to get efficiency out of our recordings to make sure we can put out regular content. Thank you for everyone who has commented and watched stuff and give us some feedback, and thanks to people engaging on Twitter.
Yeah, people joining in on the live premieres as well. We've got an awesome hobby for discussing, and the fact that people can jump in, that's where a lot of our KO list discussion happened. There's just like 3 or 4 people bouncing around ideas, and by the end of a 15-20 minute video, you've hashed something out together, which is pretty cool.
Speaking of discussion and community engagement, so what we're going to do is we've got a Discord server that we're using to record, as you can probably tell from the header if you're watching this on YouTube. But when we're doing Facehammer World Wide, we're going to have Discord as the main hangout place for people to go to enjoy that weekend. We'll be giving you some more information about that, and the server's not set up completely yet, so when it is, we'll share the link. But for those of you wondering what Facehammer World Wide is, or maybe you've not heard of it, or you're not sure what we're doing, so it'll be on Discord. It's going to be running the Facehammer GT painting events. There'll be a best army. There'll be the normal painting competition for the single miniature monster or behemoth unit, and there's an open category as well. And those are the 4 normal categories that we do, and we'll do a best in show. And what we want is to open this up to anyone watching this or listening to this across the globe who wants to enter. We just asked that it's not a model that's won something at another painting competition before, basically. So it's something new that's not something that you've already won something with. We also want to do a bit of a paint along. So there's this magazine, you're going to hear plastic, sorry about this, getting started with Age of Sigmar magazine, which you can buy from Element for about £4.25, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a bargain. We wanted to pick something where people didn't think it was a waste of money, and it's a gorgeous model. It goes together super well. It's pretty simple. You can demonstrate a variety of techniques on it easily, and it's a dream really, and it's like £5.
Yeah, so it comes with a Knight Incanter, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a paint along. So what we want people to do is to get their model, build it Friday night, hang out, a few drinks, whatever, a chat, and then we will start painting on Saturday, and Saturday will be the day, and we'll paint throughout however long you want to paint. If you want to paint 10, 12 hours, whatever, if you want to do it in 2. But Saturday will be to paint that model. We're all going to be painting one, and we'll talk about what we're doing. You can ask us questions, give you feedback, and at the end of the day, we'll give out surprises for the ones we think are cool, or the ones we particularly like. So the idea is to start in the morning, Saturday, paint and get it done, and then on the Sunday we'll judge the ones that we think are the coolest, and we'll give you a shout out and stuff, and there will be surprises and things like that. We'll give some more details on Facehammer World Wide, but that's essentially what we're going to be doing, and we want to do some guest slots as well. So
yeah, we're going to have a little think about that.
So we're probably going to have some people on to do almost like what we're doing here, basically, that you can watch live as we're doing it. So we'll precursor this that it will be unfiltered and unedited. So there will be and we're going to try and do it all hours, so until early hours overnight and stuff. So we're trying to do it as a mega live stream. So I think Terry's getting ready for his night shift. So but I'll probably be on quite late because I'm a bit of a night owl anyway, so it's my kind of how I work.
Does that leave Les for the 5 in the morning shift?
Yeah,
because I'll be up at 5 in the morning, so I'm an early starter, so that means I'm in bed by like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so you can do the Les Martin gym along in the morning if you want to get up for gym at 5 in the morning like a mentalist. And,
I'm just going to get up at a normal time.
Get fit with Les or just like sleep. It's up to you, but
that sounds good. If people do, just to drop it in there, if people want to pick up the Knight Incantor early and convert it and do like turn him into a vampire, swap a head round, anything like that, like we absolutely encourage that, and we may do that ourselves. It's a pretty solid model as it is, but if you want to put it on a funky base or put it on a diorama or like take the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon head, which does fit perfectly, by the way, and drop it on.
I'm going to Chaos Warrior Miner.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I'm going to Chaos Warrior Miner. That's what mine's going to look like. I think that'd be quite cool. Come at me, bro. You can have a sword, maybe.
Yeah.
So it would be cool to, you feel free to convert and build it before the day. We'd ask you to paint it along with us so we can see the progress, because a lot of it will be, that's going to be the fun, really, to see what people's ideas are, see pictures, share those, get comments, ask for advice on your colour scheme or what paints. We've got our very own resident Golden Demon winning painter here, so you can ask Terry about how to go about making your colours look bright and vibrant, as that seems to be a speciality. So we can get some feedback and make sure that we can give yourself some advice to make your stuff look cool. So we'd like you to be part of that journey rather than just paint it beforehand and go, here's one I did earlier, because we're not Blue Peter, we're not into that. There might be some pin badges.
Also, let Byron know as well if you're going to Series D it, because Byron's obviously pioneering this stippled dry brush technique.
Yeah, if people want to join in with their fluffy brushes, I can. I'm kind of obliged to paint mine like that, aren't I? Maybe I won't for a change, but if people want to know how I'd go about it, or want to know what color schemes they're going to use or whatever, then I can do the live thing where I really, really complexly say, if it's this, then do that for your other color.
You could do two. You could do one as a Series D in a time challenge and do a normal one. So
I could set myself something horrid like an hour and just not talk and go like this.
Well, maybe we could do a speed painting Series D brush along.
Can I just speed paint normally? Because I just paint super fast anyway.
You're not allowed to use contrast. I'm kidding.
You need a handicap, Les. You need a handicap. It's like golf. You've got to start behind, so we've got to force you to build a 7-tier base or something.
Or just I start 3 hours after everyone else does.
That's fine. I'm just going to dry brush mine grey. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Les has to start his on an exercise bike at his 5 a.m. shift like this.
Yeah, he has to. Every time he does a layer, he has to run to the gym and back. It'd take him 8 hours to do 2 layers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that break, this is sort of the intro, so we'll have a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about auxiliary objectives.
Cool.
So we're back from the break and we're just going to talk about our auxiliary match play objectives. So these are kind of like the hidden agendas that are in the handbook on page 108, 109. But I think it's important to understand there are some changes. If people you're going to a tournament using the pitch battle tournament pack on page 112, there are some important changes. How they're read.
Yeah, so I read originally that it was 2. But if you go to the actual pitch battle pack, it says you pick 3, so that's something to definitely consider, because I didn't even notice that to begin with.
It's a huge difference. If you're playing one game and you can pick 2 of 18, that's lol. And if you're going to a 5-game tournament, you have to use 15 out of 18.
Yeah, some of them are pretty tasty as well, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the thing is, as well, do we think that people are going to be using the pitch battle tournament pack going forward? Do you think this is going to be the standard, like the independent tournament scene standard as well as the GW events, or do you think it's not going to be?
It'll probably be a baseline, won't it? They'll use people who will just use it or modify it to their own pack, or they'll just have their own pack and it'll be similar enough anyway, because this is pretty standard, isn't it? It's not.
I think it's like with context. So if you're going to an event, one of the important things to do is to understand how you win and how things are weighted. So normally, if we were going to a tournament and we could look at that rules pack, you might change the army you're taking, the list you're taking, your approach to the game, something's more important than others, so you change the focus slightly. Obviously, because we've got a generic template here, I imagine that GW events would use this. So the context we're going to talk about is this context.
It's because obviously, like you said, Russ, it's like when you go to a tournament and you're sort of like you're writing your list for the events, you need to understand how you're going to maximize your ability to win the mission at hand. Not only are you going to be able to compete in all the scenarios, be able to beat your opponent, but now you need to factor in how you're going to score these auxiliaries, because they're the points allocated to them in this tournament pack is weighted quite high, isn't it? You know, you need to be able to, you know, you wouldn't want to be giving up these points each game by not factoring in how you'd score the auxiliary objectives.
How do they factor in then? What is the maths of how they contribute to your final score?
Well, you get 5 for 1 completed, and then 10 for 2, and 15 for all 3. And obviously you get nothing if you didn't do any. But it's also worth noting that in the auxiliary objective page, it says if you have more than your opponent, a draw counts as a minor victory. But in the tournament pack bit, it specifically says that's not the case. So that it doesn't change a draw to a minor. You just receive bonus points instead. So a major victory is worth 60. That's another 25% points on top of that if you get all 3. So 15 is quite a bit, isn't it? I mean, it's worth almost a minor loss. So
if you lost in a 5-game event, if you lost one game, but you got all your missions in all the 4 games you got the major in, that's essentially like getting an extra major with no secondaries. So they will add up over the event.
Also, you're a bit more likely. Yeah, you're also a bit more likely to draw now. I think the new tool in there where the likelihood of getting
Byron's
a
gone
draw
again.
is far higher than
We've lost you.
Hello, testing. I can hear you.
Yeah, we've lost you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Can you start that bit again?
Shall I just say my thing again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Just in case. I mean, you're also much more likely to draw these days. Not in many of them, but it's barely been a thing in the past. I think you've got 1 or 2 scenarios now where a draw is not unlikely.
Yeah. I think it's like when we run our events, the agendas gave you tournament points, but they weren't enough. They were a small proportion. Normally 25% is where I normally aim most of the packs at. I think, you know, you're 16 for the major, and then there was 4 for which is 25%. So it's the same ratio actually. So I think it's very standard to what we were doing. I think the difference is now you've got 3 rather than 2, and actually I think a lot of these missions are a lot harder than the hidden agendas, because some of the agendas were like auto lol turn 1 I've got it. You know.
No, it's not that case anymore. I mean, shall I start running down the list?
Yeah, so we're going to go through all 18, and we'll just give you a little bit of what we think of it, and some examples of lists or scenarios that might be good in, and then, you know, just give you guys a bit of guidance on it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's worth noting half of these, I'd say, are either hard or quite unlikely to happen. Like literally like 9 out of 18. So the first one is the aggressor. You complete this auxiliary objective if you control all of the objectives wholly within your opponent's territory. This does not include objectives located on the borderline of a territory. So it doesn't say a time there. I assume that means at any point. Just if you control them, then you're good.
Yeah. So it'd be when you factor in the control. So obviously, like some missions, you've got to be a little bit careful. Like shifting objectives doesn't have any objectives in their territory, because the territory is just a little small box. So you've got to make sure you look at the map of the mission when you do it. You know, for example, if you're in an objective when you're burning them, like, you know, scorched earth and things like that, I suppose you could take control, then you burn it, I guess. So you could score that. Like total conquest, there's only 1 objective in their territory. Same with knife to the heart. So some of those missions where there's only a single objective to take in their territory that isn't on a border.
They're going to be clustered. Yeah, they're going to be clustered around it, though. The ones where it's more obvious what you have to do, it's more obvious. If that ties into the major way to win the game, then people are going to be bunkering, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think if you're going to win, if you think you're looking at their army and thinking, oh, I'm going to steamroller this, I've got this game, then I think you can You just go, well, I'm going to play for the fact I'm going to be on their home objective of Battle for the Pass, and just play for it, because worth more VPs. You know it's a strategy. You know that's your objective. So it may not come off and you might lose, but
those are the games that you take when you take that in the mission that you're going to smash your opponent, like you said, and also like just factoring in that it's that little bit. How many people will play this mission and then realise that they haven't actually got the objective in your opponent's territory? Like you said, Russ, there's only a couple that I can think of, and they go, right, I'll use this one now, and then go, there's no objectives in the territory.
Oh, it's on the line. Yeah, it's easily done. And I mean, as you get to the later games in the tournament, this stuff gets way more difficult to manage. The next one is Assassinate. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, your opponent must pick one unit in their starting army that is a hero. You complete this auxiliary objective if that hero is slain before the end of the battle. Terry would enjoy this one. He's got indestructible heroes
as well. Yeah, you'd pick your tanky hero and just sit them safe, but it doesn't say you can't pick something that's not on the board. So it just says in their starting army. So you could pick like a hidden assassin, and then just reveal it later. Pop it on turn 5 or whenever before the end of the game, and go, well, you didn't kill it.
Quite a lot of books
will
you have to be on by turn 3 or you're counted as destroyed, aren't you? So you can.
But
it is a good way of protecting. It's a bit like Legion of Night with Manfred. You could just keep him off the table and be like, well, you can't kill him because he's not on the table.
Yeah, so you just sort of hide out for 3 turns and then pop up in like a nice little safe spot and then go and hide for the last 2.
But it's
often by turn 3 people are glued together or in a specific place with the other objectives anyway. If you pop up literally on a table edge, which is what a lot of these people do, you could be like 4 feet away from the action.
It's a good one to deny your opponent anyway, if you've got something in your list that can do that.
Yeah, I think it's knowing if you write a list with one of those sort of ancillary heroes you don't need to function in your army that you can keep safe. It's quite a good thing to have in your back pocket.
Or you just pick a tank.
Yeah.
Like if I was against, if I was against something that wasn't a shooting army, the support great and clean one with the wither save that sits behind everything doesn't really ever die. So that was the one I always picked when you have to keep the artifacts alive. Was Ancient Heirlooms before, wasn't it? I don't think I ever gave that mission up once ever with that Nurgle list, because it's hard to get to them because they're surrounded. So that's quite a good one, Assassinate, especially because you pick it. So your opponent picks it. So your army, you decide what they have to kill, which I quite like.
Yeah, so if you're writing a list, you just plan to have a unit that if your opponent uses that against you, they say, oh, my auxiliary is this one, straight away, I'm going to pick this model because it's a pain for you.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of armies have got a utility piece that doesn't have to be in the action to be useful, like Les was talking about a Vexler last week. There's some formations where, like the Ard Boys formation, where you just have to take War Chancer, and if he's on the board, you have a chance of getting a unit back. He could be in the back right-hand table corner, and you're doing a pretty good job there. The thing that I like about this is the one character armies, or like 1 or 2 character armies that they've maxed out on other stuff. It makes you really consider that, because if you're turning up and you've got Nagash and a Necromancer, obviously a Necromancer's fairly good at bouncing wounds and stuff, but it does make you consider where you should be putting another one in. So it forces you to write a slightly more rounded list or gamble, basically.
I think those games, when you do that super big bad hero, if they die, you generally lose anyway, so you might as well just pick them. So, if you spent half your army on Nagash, you might as well make him everything, right?
Yeah.
Let's put more eggs in that basket and then put the basket on another basket of eggs. Why not?
Exactly. Why not? He's 800 and something points, isn't he?
880 now, ridiculous.
The next one is the bait. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, you must pick one friendly unit in your starting army. You complete this auxiliary objective if that unit is destroyed by an enemy unit before the end of the 3rd battle round. So that's one of the more easy ones, because you suicide bomb something, and you can still get, a lot of armies can still get utility out of that. You're not just throwing it away. I see that as one of the more friendly ones.
Yeah, you put it on your chaff screen that's going to get killed anyway. And just, if they want to get through to your stuff, they've got to go through the crap little unit at the front, haven't they? So it's going to die.
It's quite a nice
They
way
gotta
to put
give
your
you the
opponent in a sticky place. Like, here you go, here's something that's in the way. You could run around it for 2 turns, or you could get through it in 1, but then you're not getting that 1 point. So I quite like that one.
One thing I would say on that, it doesn't say, it does say by an enemy unit, doesn't it? So if you've got ways to destroy the unit that aren't from one of your units, so like an endless spell, for example, that you could finish a unit off with an endless spell, and then they wouldn't be killed by one of your units. So there might be a sneaky way to get rid of the screen without actually
because
doing
if it battle shocks, that's not technically killed by an enemy unit, is it? It's killed by battle shock.
No, exactly.
So you could actually end up losing out on that one if you've got a little screen of 10 men and they just come in and carefully pick off 6 of them and the other 4 died of battle shock. Then they fail that, don't they? So
the one way you could have
kill 6 charge.
Yeah, well, the one with good ways you could do it is just to charge them into the enemy because they have to fight you. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So the next one, cornered. You complete this auxiliary objective if you have 2 or more friendly units within 3 of the same enemy hero at the end of any turn. That is a lot of requirements. What if you kill that unit by accident? You can't choose to not fight now. If you've got 2 people next to one thing, you don't have to specify which hero it is. It could be any of your opponent's heroes, which is helpful. But if you pick a weak one, there's a good chance you kill it. And if you pick a strong one, there's a good chance it kills you.
Yeah, you think you have to... You could try and get a little bit of redundancy by putting 3 units into something. Because then, like, they have to kill 2 of the units not to score that. But it's very difficult because it's at the end of the turn. That's one I probably would very rarely pick.
Yeah. Well, it's within 3, so if you're worried about killing it and you've got short reach weapons, just don't pile in.
Yeah.
So activate, don't move, so you can't reach them. Otherwise, they could activate, move closer to you, and then you'll end up hitting them. Yeah. So again, that's quite a little tricky one. You could use that to control the combats a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So you could charge 2 chaffy units into a small hero, knowing that they're probably not going to do the 10 wounds to kill it, but you only put 1 model in range to fight that hero, and then on each unit, so you're not going to kill it because you probably only got like 4 attacks anyway, and then he's going to swing back, probably not kill either of the units, so then you're going to score it, but it's going to be quite hard to pull that off.
I mean, the most important thing here is we're discussing a load of stuff which involves quite a bit of planning on the table. I think if you're doing this type of thing, you're probably not paying good attention to getting the major. Possibly, it's if my opponent picks that type of one, I'm going to be rubbing my hands, I think. Next, we have defender. You complete this auxiliary objective if there are no enemy units within your territory at the end of the battle. Fairly standard.
Yeah.
Like, again, if you're winning, you're more likely to get that. If you're losing, as ever, stuff that can drop on like Canary or something like that is a really good way to be able to deny your opponent, or summoning or anything like that. Domination. So I think this one's pretty hard to pull off. If 3 or more enemy units are destroyed in the same turn, like that is quite a big ask. If you're going to roll,
I think it's fairly easy.
Yeah, it depends what sort of armor you have, because when I was playing Khorne, you probably kill 5 units in a turn quite happily, because Scarbrand kills 2 or 3 on his own. When you're piling in multiple times with stuff that can kill 40 models in one round of combat, those ones aren't particularly hard. That, from my like Nurgle army, on the other hand, you'd have to like work that so that you deplete the units and heroes really low, be careful not to kill them, and then do them all in one turn. Because you don't really have the burst damage to just go in and take off 3 units in a go. So you'd have to whittle them down and play for that one, I think, and be quite clever to get that one with some lists.
If your army arrives at your opponent in waves as well, it's quite like you've got your guys getting there, and then you do some damage in your turn, but you might finish them off in their turn, and then your backup slow units arrive. I think it's if you've got a certain type of
armies should have no problem with that, because you just pick 3 small targets and shoot them all off in one go, don't you?
Yeah.
A couple of heroes and chaff screens.
If your opponent worries about battle shock, or if you've got an army that can exploit bravery and your opponent worries about battle shock, that's a bit more easy too, but still not a doddle. I Grudge. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, you must pick one enemy hero in your opponent's starting army and one friendly hero in your starting army. You complete it if that enemy hero is slain by an attack made by a melee weapon by that friendly hero. That is 3 requirements.
Yeah.
Hard
Difficult
for a
one.
lot of armies.
Yeah.
It might be quite a good one for the Prime. So if you're using a Celestin Prime, you could say, well, my Prime will kill this hero, because basically at any given point in the game you can come down and say, well, I'm 9 away, I'll make my charge automatically with the Prime ability, charge in, and then just bonk him over the head. So again,
and you can shoot them a bit first too and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but it's you've got to get a hero into melee of something you've got to kill, so it's very tricky. But it is.
Some armies will do that easy.
I think it's quite a good way to play head games with people, especially if you're playing like 3 Places of Arcane Power or something like that, and you can say, well, you want to kill that character in combat with your character anyway, and then you don't want them to kind of think twice about sticking them on the objective. So
you can also get someone to tie up if they don't have many screening units. What if they have to keep back like a substantial, like a medium elite unit of 20 guys back to put a board around the thing that they're protecting? Then those 20 guys aren't somewhere else on the table doing something useful potentially.
It's a bit like your Godrak list. If you said that Godrak's going to go kill this big scary character, they're going to be like, well, I don't want Godrak being able to mighty destroyers or countercharge with Iron Suns or get into range of me to do that, because that's going to give you the auxiliary, but also like he's very capable of going into combat and killing something, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think with all of the the really competitive builds, or what you'd see as the competitive builds at the moment, they're usually quite sort of like, they don't have big heroes, do you? Like take the Idnef list that's quite competitive at the moment. That really has a Tidecaster and 2 Soul Scryers, like maybe 1. It doesn't really have many heroes that are going to want to fight. So it's a very different. Yeah, but most people don't. I mean, sometimes Voltonus is in the list, sometimes he's not. But Voltonus or the King's still quite easy to kill. I think that one's really good if you've got a super character to go in and kill something with. But if you run in sort of like the more, I mean, like look at like a Lumineth build. It's going to be maybe Teclis, maybe a Cathbar. They're not really going to want to take that, because they're not going to they're not going to want to fight anything. So it's very different. It's very difficult if you're running support heroes that aren't like a big killy hero and you're using them as like a support function. So look at Fireslayer list. Your Fireslayer heroes aren't really going to want to be fighting these, because they don't do any of the heavy lifting. They just sit behind stuff and make the units better.
You need to.
And they struggle to reach. They struggle to reach too. Like they might just not get there on their little legs.
You need a big monstrous hero like a Keeper, something like that. I mean, I'm looking at Kradron and go, the fact it's got to be in melee as well. I'm thinking, a KO hero that's going to kill you in combat, probably not going to happen, is it?
Just some of these you're not going to be able to do. So you just look at that one and go, well, I don't have a melee hero, so I'll have to get another. I'll have to get another objective elsewhere.
The only way I think you could probably do it is if you've got an admiral or someone on a boat, and you put the boat in, and you soften them up with all the Arcanauts, then he just bonks them the last wound. But it's like the perfect storm, isn't it? So
and that's something you're going to have to factor in, especially if you're running like a 5-game tournament. Might be one of the ones that you don't take, but then that means then you're taking one of those other super difficult ones. So
I think you're gonna, when you write an army, you need to bear these in mind. But I don't think you'll be able to write a list that can compete in every scenario for every permutation of battle line, behemoth and leader and monster and infantry and hard to kill, plus all of these. So you're gonna have to make some choices to just understand where you excel and where you don't.
I think 2/3, 3/4 max, and if you try to get more than that, you're probably writing a really weird army that is very good at secondaries and won't do as well in primaries. And you might get lucky. We spoke about Terry's list recently, and I think that's got quite a few of these covered, even the hard ones, but they're still very difficult ones. On the subject of which, Headhunter. You complete this if all the leader units in your opponent's starting army are destroyed before the end of the battle. Terry, I'd love his opponent picking that. How often does that happen?
You're not going to kill... I've never lost all 3 Going Clean ones in a game. I've never lost that. I think at most I've lost 1, maybe 2. I think there's been the games where 2 have died by turn 5, but that's a really brutal game to kill.
That's basically requiring you to, generally speaking, more often than not, that should read, did you wipe your opponent's army?
Did you table your opponent? Is for the most part.
I think it depends. Like if you've got like, I was talking about the KO example. If they've got like 3 or 4 heroes that you just shoot them off, you're like, well, I've not only have I done. If you do the one that you got to kill 3 units and kill all their heroes, and they've got 3 heroes, and you just shoot them all off in one turn, you go, well, not only have I done that one, but I've done 2 in one phase.
Yeah.
So one shooting phase, I've just done both. You know, even
or the. I'm sorry, Russell.
I was going to say like Rain of Stars from the Star Drake over the game.
Yeah, does it? Or Peter's list from last week, we talked about the Leeuwenhoek one that like basically kills all the support heroes.
One Kevlar,
just kill
isn't
them all on the first turn.
But he's only got one Kevlar on his list, so you kill that one hero, you win that mission. So if I was playing against that, I would pick that because it's like, you know, it's.
Or he one drops and kills all your heroes.
Maybe.
And he chooses it, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I'm just saying. I'm saying that if I was playing against him, that would be a good mission because there's one model I have to kill with 5 wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. With 5 save.
Yeah.
I think it's a very difficult one, but it generally fits with the plan of winning the primary objective quite nicely. So it's if you're going to get the game anyway, you've got a good chance of getting that one. So it doesn't involve you do anything particularly weird, but it might just be really difficult to get. Invader. So I think this one's good for a few people, but it's quite hard in general. At the end of the battle, you have more friendly units wholly within your opponent's territory than your opponent has wholly within your territory. Again, hello, Terry.
Yeah, I think you just plan for that one, don't you? And go, well, if I'm going to win, I'm going to be in their deployment zone and they're not going to have enough to outscore my units anyway. Yeah, I'd quite happily take that one, I think.
Though. Yeah, I think it's
you
quite
just have to be careful of things
that
drop down and score late game, don't you? That just come in at the back and outnumber your units.
Yeah.
If you're playing daughters, you can have like Tias and Kinori that you can use to basically you can keep them off the table to the last round and just basically go, well, I'm going to make sure that you're not scoring that, or I am scoring that. So
that's such a good one for screwing with your opponent's head, because they could be off the table threatening that, and really you're threatening multiple things, and your opponent's staying back, and you're just giving yourself like an easier job in the middle of the board. It's quite difficult for those armies that have the strategy of like asserting objective dominance early on, and then are often like, I don't know, they've lost 2/3 of their army by the end of the game, but they've won the major. So I think that's a bit of a rock paper scissors one. Some armies great, other armies quite a bit more difficult. Marked for death. When you reveal this auxiliary objective, your opponent must pick one unit in their starting army that is not a hero. You complete this auxiliary objective if that unit is destroyed before the end of the battle. So again, it's your opponent picking it, but some armies are going to be amazing at this, and some armies are going to be pretty bad.
Okay, so with this one, let's say you're having a great game, and you whittle your opponent down to 1 unit left, and then reveal this and go, well, you have to pick that 1 unit, and then I'm going to kill it.
No, it's revealed at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So auxiliaries,
start?
Yeah, auxiliaries are picked before then revealed.
Oh, of course, yeah, it is, yeah.
So they would have to. So basically, I think if you've got a very defensive unit like 30 plate bearers, 40 Mortec guard, you know, they're never. You can almost like say, well, you can try and kill it, but good luck with that.
Again, with the
also
canaries,
bait people. Yeah.
Stuff that's off the board again. Oh, I'll pick these canary and then I'll drop them in right at the end.
Turn 5.
On the other side of the board.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many stuff that can stay off until turn 5, apart from probably Kinnerai and the Prime. I think it's the only things. Because I think most books have got a 3 turn limit before their counter's destroyed.
Even 3 turns is great though, isn't it? Because the battle's probably going on around the centre or off to the side, you know, over the main primary objectives of the game, and you just pop on the other side and go, yeah, I'll just sit in this corner.
Yeah. A lot of the time,
so like Canary or Soul Scryers are quite good for that, just because they don't really. I mean, Canary are really good at sniping heroes and objective control. You're gonna. I mean, I don't know if I'd put it on the Prime, because like the Prime has more battlefield impact on me winning the major than him getting 5 points for this objective.
A lot of the time with him,
there's throwaway ones.
Yeah, a lot of the time with him though, because he doesn't take a massive amount of hits back before he dies. A lot of the time with him, you're dropping down and you're kind of like wiping out those 10 guys that are standing on your opponent's home objective or something like that, in which case, if you drop down turn 3 and you muller 3 units and then just go and stand off to the side, he might have, and just stay there pew-pewing people, he might have done his job anyway. So that one's, again, another flip-floppy one. This one I think is really hard. Mass Panic. You complete this auxiliary objective if 2 or more different enemy units fail a battle shock test in the same battle round. So some armies don't take battle shock, and it's hard to engineer anyway.
It was hard enough doing it with 1 unit in the agendas, let alone 2.
Right?
Terror, wasn't it, before?
Terrify, yeah.
Terrify. Yeah, I'd never pick that one because it was just everything was bravery 10 or immune to battle shock.
But this isn't
battle shock, like spend a command point, don't they, and stop it with a command point as well.
This is I think Terrify though was destroy unit, wasn't it? This is just fail. So again, it's you could make them fail their test, but they don't necessarily die from it. So if they lose their model, so I mean it might even play into the fact that if you want your opponent to spend their command points on Inspiring Presence because you want them to burn their command points. So if you're playing against an army that's got lots of units with low bravery and you spread your damage out and you say, well, you either spend your points or you fail your battle shot by 1 point, that's still enough for me to get the mission. So you could use it to give your opponent a decision to make, which they might not normally would do. They'd normally just go, I'll just let them a couple models run, I don't care.
Yeah, like Daughters, if they're not going to be able to pile in and attack you in their next hero phase,
they're immune to battle shot
at that point.
They're basically immune because they just spend the point. They just use a Witch Brew, they're all immune to battle shock, they get to reroll everything. So bad example.
I think it's quite good for Lumineth as well. Like Lumineth are good because you can use the Voice of the Mountain to reduce bravery by 2, get the Cathlar, bounce the battle shocks. Like, you know, if you've got that unit of Wardens fighting 2 units and your opponent's like not got, and maybe you've comboed it with the Total Eclipse, so then they're spending 2 command points for 1, so they're not going to be able to use their command points to stop. So you can Voice of the Mountain plus 2 bravery, Total Eclipse, 2 command points for 1, and then bounce the 2 up battle shock off your Wardens.
It just sounds like a really lame playlist. Voice? Yeah. And what was the other one? Total Eclipse of the Mountain or whatever. It's like the worst metal band playlist, like album. But what I would say as well, it says Mass Panic. It's in the battle round, so they could fail a battle shock in their turn and your turn. So it's like not. So actually, I think it's actually a lot easier than Terrify, because Terrify you have to destroy a unit. This one you just have to fail, and it's within a round. So I don't think it's too bad. Obviously, if you're playing against Bone Reapers, you're never getting that one. But you know,
I think this is one of the ones that if you think you can get it in your first couple of games, you spend these ones early, you get them out of the way, and then you leave yourself with the more flexible ones. So, Overwhelm. You complete this objective if any enemy hero is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon by a friendly battle line unit. 3 requirements. Hard.
Depends on what it goes into, doesn't it? Like Liberator's into like a 5 wound hero, kills it.
I've killed a Gash with Plague Bearers once, so
just remember
again, I suppose.
Just remember the battle line unit bit means it's not your summoned units now. Come on, because they don't count the battle line anymore.
It's fine.
I think it's specific and hard, but just it's what it is. Some armies obviously way better, like Fire Slayers, if they're going to roll
Daughters,
because
all your damage comes from your Witch Elves anyway, doesn't it? So you're going to be killing stuff. So
the KO list would be good at it, because the Engine Riggers would be battle line if you've got the Engine Master in the dirigible suit. So basically your Aphomatic Saws, which are like Ren 2 damage D3, you go in with a unit of them, and I think they are like freezing 2s, rerolling 1s to hit, and you just go in and just go like, well, I'll just murder ice you with the saws, and they're so fast and they fly, you can probably get them where you need them to get to a hero, because it's not, you don't have to specify again, and you're probably helping you do the mission by alpha striking a hero anyway. So I think it's it depends on your army. I think if you've got even like Mortek Guard will quite easily kill a hero in combat.
For sure,
course they will.
piggies-
Small tech guard, mate. OBR,
piggies might not do
they
a
don't
battle.
play in any of these auxiliary things. It's like, yeah, they kill the heroes, yeah, they don't die, like, yeah, they like, you know, you don't take battle shock. OBR.
So, moving on. Pillage. When you reveal this objective, you must pick one terrain feature wholly within your opponent's territory. Sometimes there isn't one of those. You complete this if you have a friendly unit with a combined wounds characteristic of 5 or more within 3 of that feature at the end of any battle round. This objective cannot be completed using a unit that was set up on the battlefield in the same battle round.
Okay, so
Hard.
it stops the Canary, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's
The drop down.
if you see a good bit of terrain, you pick this one, but try and get it out the way early because you could just get unlucky. Like where the terrain is or the size of it, their terrain could be on their objective and they could be not moving off it.
Don't forget some armies have their own terrain piece that they have to put in their territory.
Good point.
Yeah.
So you could pick their terrain feature and just get within 3 of it and be like, well,
Yeah, like the altar of skulls or whatever for Corman
yeah, and
has to go in there.
the Loon Shrine,
So,
Loon Shrine as well. I think.
Yeah.
I think the you, even if you've got one that you can set up like the Ossiarch Bone Reapers piece, you put that before the game starts, so you can ensure that's wholly within their territory. And when they pick table sides, they might pick the other side, but you can almost manipulate the table. Same with like Sylvaneth as well.
Yeah, it's
Or
a good point.
IDK boats, right? Because you
Yeah.
can put, you've got 2 boats.
One in
there,
each.
so you just go one in your deployment. Yeah, one in each, and then just be a nuisance.
Because you're like, well, I'm gonna get within 3 of it. You know, so I think is it the end
like-
of battle round? Yeah, so
Yeah,
fairly.
it's like
I think
2
that's
wheels,
fairly
isn't it,
easy.
next to it.
Particularly if you're going second in the round, because you just go and move on to it and go, well, I've got it. So
Yeah.
That's mine now. Yep. Moving on. Prey on the Weak. You complete this if all the battle line units in your opponent's starting army are destroyed before the end of the battle, aka wipe your
That's okay,
opponent again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prize
Well, I mean,
possession.
like, some people take minimum battle line, don't they, as well? So, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to take 3 units of 5 and then do the rest of the cool shit and just go kill, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's one done.
The
So-
night on that side though, like if they spent 90 points on a unit of Arcanauts, they probably don't mind leaving them in a corner to deny it.
Yeah.
leave 'em on a
Prey on
boat.
the
Like, all those death armies. All those death armies with
Yeah.
15 dogs chasing the dragons around.
I don't see them anymore because they put the price of dogs, necromancers, and everything else up, and it's not viable for a tournament army anymore. So, plus the fact
Oh, okay.
if you return them
Yeah.
from the graves, they're not dead, so you wouldn't score it.
So,
Fucking
Prize possession, which is basically ancient heirlooms, I think. When you reveal this objective, you must pick one friendly hero with an artifact of power. You complete it if that hero has not been slain by the end of the battle.
yeah.
If you,
So it's slightly
if you've got
different
resilient
to
heroes.
heirlooms because that used to be you just had to have one left, didn't you? So if you had multiple, you could risk losing one, but you just had to keep one alive. But this one, it's a specific hero, isn't it? So you just pick your most survivable artifact and just hope that they can hang on.
Yeah, if you've got named characters, it can get a bit more tricky. Say you've got a big dude supported by a whatever, it can be quite difficult to keep your whatever alive. If it's a 5-wound wizard with an ablative item on it, because why not? But fairly standard. Auxiliary objective, you must pick one terrain feature that is not within your territory. You complete it if you have one or more friendly units within 3 of that terrain feature at the end of the 4th battle round. It's kind of
This reminds me of a mission from way back in the day where it wasn't at the end of the game. It was like mid. Was it one of the things that it was in the tournament pack that was done for Clash, wasn't it? It was the Mocomp mission.
Yeah.
Where it was like about round 3 or something. You had to do that. It was almost the same, I think.
Yeah.
It's quite a cool one, but smaller armies might struggle with this if all the units have to be doing something useful. But yeah, just kind of.
It's just
normal.
remembering. It's just remembering at the end of turn you've got to have a unit stood there, and then I think
Yeah.
it can be a bit tricky.
Territorial. You must pick one objective on the battlefield. You complete this if you control that objective at the end of 2 consecutive battle rounds, not turns, battle rounds.
So that's going to be like 3 places of power, something like that you've got. You know, you're going to try and hold those objectives, or
Yeah.
you know, something along those lines. going to be difficult for some armies, but it's also, if you've done that, you're probably winning the game, so you double down on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those again. If you're going to do well, pick this.
I think if you've got a mission, one that's got a home objective as well, it's a fairly easy one because you want to protect it anyway.
Knife to the heart, like sticking dudes on it.
Yeah, or battle for the past, focal points, or those ones that you've got the diamond sort of one's worth 4, the where's theirs worth 4, yours is worth 1, sides are worth 2. Those sort of missions. Total conquest as well. There's one in your back corner where you deploy, so you could just keep that one. But again, especially if you're playing against a slow opponent who doesn't have a lot of teleport in it, they're not going to get there in 2 turns to get you off of it. So
no. Final one is Vengeful Counter, which is pretty cool. You complete this if any enemy units are destroyed in the same turn that any friendly units are destroyed. Not too bad to engineer, really, in most scenarios.
I think it's quite easy.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward. One thing I was just looking for, does it say what you have to write the 15 that you're going to use on your list?
What you mean for the tournament pack?
Yeah,
no,
I don't think so. In there. So you can sort of pick and choose these as you go anyway. You sort of pick I'm definitely going to do these 10, 12, and then you'd sort of engineer the last couple of
GW events where they ask you to write the 15 that you're taking.
Yeah.
When you go to the event, so they might. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it would be. You'd think that they'd have it in there, but like usually at the GW events, they'd be like, right, okay, write down what you're using. So then we can,
and then you can decide to not use the 3 impossible ones for your list before you go to the event.
I think
I don't know.
I don't think there's any comment on here about in this pack as well about not duplicating them. It says must pick 3 different in each round of the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think you'll be forced to pick the 15 out of the 18 because sometimes you just won't be able to do it. Like, so
I think as long as you're recording them, you have to record which ones you used, and by the end you will have used 15 and you won't have used 3. And that's probably always going to be the same 3.
As a TO, I wouldn't ask you to restrict yourself down to 15 because it's not like you're playing 5 out of 18. You're playing 15 out of 18. So it's not worth getting people to make that choice pre-tournament as long as you can't duplicate.
You're probably not going to do the same. Round. You're probably not going to do the same 3 anyway. When you write your list, you go, well, I can't do those 3, so I'm just going to do the other 15 anyway.
I mean, I think it's actually not bad that you can just choose as you go because, like, we've all turned up to the table sometimes, and this is going to sound really bad, but we've all turned up to the table sometimes, and you're like, this guy's obviously here for a different reason at a tournament than I would be there for. I want to be
first event ever or whatever.
Yeah, and like they've got an entire like troll army with none of the optimal bits, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm just gonna, and I've got like 60 Fire Slayer, like 60 Hearthguard Berserkers, and I'm like, I'm just gonna walk over it. So then you could maybe, you're gonna win that mission. So you then maybe choose one of the harder ones that then that tees you up for the easier ones later on.
You just take the 3 hardest ones and hope that you don't you don't fail it.
Don't do a Matt Leons and get Troggoth Doff unexpectedly with your Deepkin, wasn't it?
It's something like that, I think. Yeah.
I love that troll army.
I think like the strategy you employ for choosing your missions, like whether you like Terry says, you play someone who perhaps isn't as seasoned as yourself, and you think, well, I can guarantee these ones really easily because I know that I'm probably going to wipe them off the table, and that allows you to claim those points against a good player, like later on, and when you're someone who's more at your level, when you've gone through the Swiss system, it's going to be a harder game, and so they're going to be harder to do. So
it's just another type of resource management, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, and I think the getting used to them and understanding what you can use when is going to be really important.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I think like you touched on, you're going to want the easiest missions in the hardest games so that you can guarantee you get those 15 points. And also, one of the things that I'd be doing just going forward to tournaments would be sitting down and reading each of these and looking at my list and then reading them again and knowing like knowing how they affect how I play the game, they're going to be a crucial part of how I play going forward. So it would make sense to, I think, like for a tip, just don't turn up to an event and use these as an afterthought. They need to be part of your prep for the event, and you know,
even have like your easiest 6 and your worst 6 written down or something, and then you've just got something to, because it's 18 is a lot, especially your first 2 games. You've got 18 and 15 to choose from at that point.
I think you've got to be really careful as well that in some scenarios some of those aren't possible, so you need to really make sure that if you're in a 5-round event and there's 18 scenarios, that you don't want to get to the last round and then the scenario dictates you're not going to be able to get your mission. So there are some that you will, depending on what mission comes up, you will use straight away, because in that mission they're achievable, whereas in other missions they're not, and you can't risk it. You can't risk holding on to those.
Exactly. It's understanding which aren't achievable as well. It's knowing which ones aren't achievable, so that it's like, don't think about it. Like Russ says, don't let yourself get caught out by playing trying to play the objective mission in the last round of a tournament on table 1 and go, I mean, you wouldn't be if you're on table 1 the last round of a tournament, but like, you know, with the objective in the territory, it's knowing which ones are achievable, which missions you cannot physically win with that mission. You can't score those objectives. So just understanding how they interact in the game with the missions is, like, I think, like massive now. I mean, list design, playing lots of games, and this is like the 3 legs of the tripod, I think, maybe.
It's all about knowledge, isn't it? Like if you know the missions and you know the scenarios and you know the combinations and you know your army, you know their army, when you come to a table you can make all those decisions you have to make at the beginning. You're making an informed decision. And like I say, some people can read and memorize it, other people can have to play loads of games and get that behavior ingrained. And I think it's understanding how you work and give yourself the best possible chance to score as many points as possible. And I'm kind of a bit of a believer in, if you can get points, even if it's against someone that you think, I'm probably going to win this game anyway, it's just get the points that are available. Like just beat what's in front of you, get everything you can get. Because the worst thing is if you play someone that you think you're going to beat and you put the hardest missions in, you don't achieve them. But later on you've got an easy mission, but you're playing someone you're probably not going to beat, and you don't get the mission either. And then you've doubled down on failure, basically.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I think a confidence will come into it and being able to read the table state. But I think for me, I would like to use the missions to almost manipulate my opponent's thought process.
Yeah.
So I think in some, when it's like pick their hero or you pick a unit, or you can almost like, they've got to kill my navigator who's in the gun hauler with the collapsible compartment in the corner of the board. Go on then, go get him. Like, I don't care. He's done his job. He can shoot you for 24 inches away. Come get him. And the point is, it's like you can, I think you can really mess with people with these missions, especially
give them more decisions.
Yeah, exactly. You give them more opportunities to make the wrong decision. So I do really like what they add to the game. I think they add a real level of depth.
I like they're all not super easily achievable either. It might be just these days, like whereas it used to be you expect to get one, like a good player is going to get 100% in their first 4 games out of 5. Perhaps that's just way less achievable now, and that's just a shift in expectations. It'll break people up in top tables more easily and more obviously, and it'll probably encourage people to write slightly more well-rounded lists also. So I don't see any negatives to them whatsoever, and I kind of like the struggle. I wish there was less to think about, but I'll get over it.
It's the wrong game if you don't want to think. You go play something else.
Snap.
It's too complicated. The images look the same. But I think that about wraps up for Auxiliary Objectives. So we're a big fan. We think they're going to add a level, and it would be really interesting to see how TOs use that mechanic going forward.
If you are going to run an event and you're going to force people to write them down or anything like that, like, let us know your thoughts on it. And also, if you think you've got a list that is like that perhaps doesn't overtly look amazing, like Les has already mentioned the new elves, I think they're going to excel at this type of stuff, and the list that Les is going to talk about later actually is a very good example of something that does a little bit of everything and probably has real equity in terms of being able to cash in these.
Yeah, we'll see. He says.
So if you like this content and you want to hear more of this kind of stuff, then make sure you let us know what you want us to talk about. Subscribe and comment below. It'd be great. And if you want to know when we release a video, hit the notification bell, and you can get the updates as they happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll take a short break and we'll be back with the next section.
Cool.
Army for someone on the scene, and they left it pretty much all to my devices. So I picked a colour scheme that I probably would have done myself, which is bright, colourful, something that people don't really normally do with Slaanesh. They're more flesh coloured than like the purple, pale, demonette hide that you normally see Slaanesh done. And so they
pale skin, isn't it, and stuff. And you've done it like more.
So they've got more of an actual closer to flesh colour, like quite. Trying to think what I use, Kislev flesh mixed with a bit of like bone in it, just to sort of.
So I've just put the keeper up on the screen, so people can see that. So you can you can see the colour scheme Terry's talking about. So just talk us through. You've done like a nice sort of realistic flesh colour. So what else did you, when you were doing that, what colours did you think would go around the edges with that?
So on a tester model I did for myself a long time ago, I wanted the pink to purple transition towards like their feet and their hands and like the scaly bits of the model. So like on the tail, on the keeper as well, and some of the demonettes they have it on. I just wanted it to be purple as well. I love painting purple and pink, so it seemed to go nicely with the flesh through to pink, through to the purple. And the pink used is actually Vallejo Sunset Red, and when you put that over flesh, you get a really, really nice vibrant colour, which then you can immediately darken down with the purple, which is Vallejo's purple as well, hexed lichen.
Hex lichen,
yeah. That's my go-to purple.
It's really, really vibrant, that, isn't it? That colour, it recovers so well.
Covers black in like a second. Yeah.
If you put it over black, it's really dark, like you'd expect. But when you put it over white, it's super, super, super bright, like such a vibrant purple. But when you look at it and think it's not going to be that bright, but it really is when you.
Is the transitions that through airbrush then?
So the transitions are all knocked out with the airbrush. Across an entire army, it would just take. I think you'd be taking too long to hand blend that down. You could put some simple transitions down, but I think if you want a smooth blend on like the keeper's legs from flesh right at the top to purple right at the bottom, it's going to take way too long for a gaming army.
There's not a fast way to do it. Yeah.
No. You just can't beat the airbrush in certain applications, and I think that is one of them. When you're trying to put down a gradient across, 50, 70, 85 models.
Yeah,
they're not small,
especially when they're smooth, right? As well, if it was like a load of dragons or something with scales, you can get away with a lot more there.
Yeah, you could dry brush over a lot of that, and the scales would take a lot of the transition, wouldn't they? But when you're doing legs on a keeper that are like long, elegant, like stocking type material, I just don't think you can really beat the airbrush for that. You could probably do like a weird contrast wet blend on the surface maybe, but I still don't think you'll get the result that you want. For the time invested, I just don't think you're going to get that result any other way.
So was the satiny sort of like turquoisey blue like cloak, was that airbrushed as well and then sort of like touched up with brush blending?
No, so on the two keepers it's airbrushed because the robes are separate,
so big,
and they're so big. On all the other models it's blended, so it's just a quick wet blend on the surface on like the Epitome, Celeste's robes, the Demonettes and everything else themselves have all just got quick blends on the. I say quick blends, they're not really quick at all, but...
I was going to say, you've got to slow down at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, on the characters, the blends are good. Like, you know, they're decent. There was time put into those. On the demonettes, you can get away with like a quick sort of like an almost glazy wet blend over the top.
Because it's the hair, isn't it? Dark at the roots, going out to the tips.
Yeah, the hair. You could almost get away with dry brushing. To be fair, I just kind of sort of overbrush them with like not a dry brush. Just it was a very controlled, messy highlight over hair where you just pick out the ridges with one quick stroke. But yeah, the robes on the keepers and Shalaxi were airbrushed on, and then I varnished them as well with satin varnish just to keep like. I used a mixture of paints, so some had a glossier finish than others. I think I used my Tamiya flat white ran out, so I used Tamiya white, and it's actually quite glossy. Yeah. Which was surprising because I would have thought it was just like a normal finish, like, you know, somewhere between satin and matte, like most of the colours, but it was actually quite glossy. So once all the robes were done, I hit them all with a satin varnish. And you're probably going to pick the models up by the robes quite a bit.
Yeah, you are. So you're using Tamiya there. I presume other people might not know that it's just like silk when it comes out the airbrush. You're using that because it comes out so smooth, I guess? Yeah,
so with whites, with the airbrush, I think you've got two real good options. You've got white ink, or you've got Tamiya whites.
I was just about to say if you've used the Dahlia and Rowney white ink, because that's...
I have used that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so what I found is the Tamiya flat white is just smoother anyway. I would have thought the ink would have actually been a smoother flow through the airbrush, but the Tamiya flat white, and the Tamiya white in this case, just seemed smoother anyway, even though the ink should have smaller pigment in it as well, because it's an ink, not a paint.
Tamiya just feels like it's like pre-lubed. It just comes out an airbrush, just always behaves, always is consistent, and out of machinery at least, not with a brush. I think it's a nightmare like that.
I don't think you can apply it with a brush because it doesn't stick properly.
No.
So just so we talk about the scheme again. So you've got the light blue robes and that. You've done like green gems. Is there a reason you went for green?
It just contrasts nicely against the flesh, and obviously the blue is actually a green. Although it looks blue, it's Sotek green mixed with white. So there is that turquoisey element to it. So it's not actually a pure blue. There is a green hue in there, which is more visible when you've actually got the models in hand. And obviously the green goes nicely because you've already got the slight tint of green
a hint of it,
in the robes and hair. But it just stands out nicely against the purple and the gold, obviously, because all the metal is gold washed with purple. The green just contrasts really nicely against it, and I just think green's just classic for gems, isn't it? When you see nicely painted green gems, they're just pleasing. I think even if you put them on a green model, they'd still look pleasing enough because you've got the yellow in there as well, as the final highlight on the green gems normally. And they're glossy as well, so...
I always see gems' classic colour is red, but that's the high elf armies I used to paint. But
for me, green seems to be the one I've done the most of, I think. Because obviously that Elder army I did previously, that had green gems.
That's purple. Was it? I can't remember. No, it's the purple accent colour against the black, wasn't it, that you did with the Elder army? That's what I'm thinking, purple.
Did I do green gems? I can't remember now. I thought I did. I did purple glowy weapons, but the gems
and the purple. It's the accent that I'm thinking of because of the purple on the
the purple on the stuff, tanks and stuff. But the gems themselves were green. Yeah, they were green.
I think red wouldn't have worked particularly well on that scheme as well. If you'd have put like
it probably would have clashed with the red in the flash maybe.
I think
quite a warm
orange could have done quite well, like an orangey to yellow.
Yeah.
But
orange and yellow would have been nice.
I'm just showing the back of the keeper now, so you can see the smoothness on those robes that are on the back. So did you do any brushwork on that, or is it all just airbrush?
The robes on the keepers are pure airbrush.
But you normally
kind of what
glaze at the end, do you? Like with a
So
paint glaze?
normally I would paint glaze over them, but the finish on them was so smooth from the Tamiya that I didn't really see the
point.
need.
Yeah.
Because I sprayed on the satin varnish and it just smoothed out the surface a little bit more, and there was very little. Obviously, if you have airbrush, anyone listening in the past, white, you often get the dusty, powdery effect because spraying white over anything, the odd little droplet that goes here or there is really obvious. But Tamiya you don't really get much. They're so smooth. Like shout out to Andy Wardle's White Scar bike video.
Yeah.
Like if you've seen that or haven't seen that, that is amazing for doing white. And again, he uses Tamiya whites, and you can see why they're so smooth. But yeah, normally when I do any airbrushing, I'll put a wash or a glaze over afterwards just to get rid of that airbrushed look of the powdery finish you sometimes get. Obviously, all the skin was done with airbrush and then washed with a mixture. So the whole model, effectively, other than the robes, is washed with this mix. So it's the metal, the skin, the claws, the purple, all of that is all washed with a Drucci Violet, Lamia Medium with some soft tone, Army Paint, the soft tone in there as well.
Nice.
I like washing
classic mixes.
Yeah, I like washing gold with purple, especially with the Slaanesh. It just gives that really nice finish. The little bit of soft tone in there just ties it all together. It smooths out the transitions on the skin a little bit, that extra little bit of soft tone, and it gives that sort of browny shadow in the skin as well on top of the purple.
The metals have got like a really nice like bronzy feel because of the purple, obviously over the purple and the brown over the gold. Makes it look.
The metal's simple as well. It's Balthazar gold. It's washed the purpley mix, and then it's got a silver highlight on it. That's it. There's no. I've not had to do any extra layers or anything on it.
I think it's quite a good example of when you focus on the focal points of the model, like the skin, the light blue, and the details can be done very simplistically, like the metals and things like that, because you don't want the eye drawn to those areas too much anyway, but you want to make sure they've got definition. So I've just got Shalaxi Hellbane on the screen, and looking at the shield, it reminds me of Necrons, just because it's like silver, bronze, and bright luminous green. So that is quite cool.
And again, that was straightforward. Again, just silver base coat with the Balthazar gold. And I washed the whole thing with the same purple, and then I just put some little tiny silver scratch marks on it just to sort of add a bit of liveliness to the shield. Painted the gems and glossed them. And again, washing all the metal as well with the soft tone purple mix takes a lot of the shine off the metal, so that when you put your highlights on, you're controlling where the shine is.
Yeah.
Because obviously, when you're base coating and highlighting metals, if it's all shiny, it's hard to see where the highlight really sits. But if you control it by making the rest of the metal darker, then you really get to sort of show where you want your highlights rather than the natural metal highlight to sort of put it where it wants to. So you sort of control it a bit more, almost like with a non-metallic metal, because you've dulled it down so it's not shiny, to put the highlight back in to add the shine afterwards.
So what about the basing then? Did you come up with that? You just wanted to keep it close to the blue, and it's like almost like a turquoise, isn't it?
It's like a jade, like an emeraldy colour. I'm trying to think what colour it is. Light turquoise maybe. Actually, I've got it here on my desk. Emerald turquoise. It's got dark sea blue and blue green. Yeah, so it's Vallejo blue green, and then it's just shaded around the rock with Vallejo dark sea blue, like quite thin, just to add a bit of shadow.
Dark sea blue is amazing paint.
Dark sea blue is one of my favourite colours. It's amazing. I did the skin on my latest Bellacore with dark sea blue mixed in as well.
And again, you've used the finish to affect that. You've used varnishes.
Yeah, so you've got a really matte base with matte pigments next to gloss varnish, so it really sells. The bases just pop. you'll see those across the gaming hall. Same way I've done my basing on my army, purple with, you know, the tentacles and slime and bubbles. This one I wanted a more simplistic, so I didn't put bubbles or tentacles in. I just kept it, you know, as a one coat of water, effectively, just like, you know, blue, poisonous lakes or something. Just it needed to be something bright and colourful.
Did you achieve that the standard way, which is, for people who don't know, sort of like get the cork down and then just apply PVA thickly and let it dry, or did you do it a different way?
So with these, so cork down first, and then PVA over the plastic base, because obviously the plastic base has its own texture. So put PVA down over it. Once it's dry, do it again, because as the PVA dries, it shrinks away from the edge of the base, so you need a couple of coats of it. You could use water effect or something as well, which will shrink a little bit. I've seen people sand the bases as well, just to get rid of that texture, to smooth them out, and then put the water.
That's what I did with my Lumineth
PVA over afterwards. But again, because it's a commission army, I didn't want to put on a load of different water textures, and because it's a gaming army as well, so it's not, you know, it's not meant to have super realistic water. It's just meant to look effective, and, you know, then a nice tidy black rim just frames the turquoise quite nicely.
I'm just choices are gorgeous.
I'm just looking at the Slaanesh on the screen now. So this is one of my favourite Slaanesh models. What I really like about what you've done on here is you've picked out all the scarification in like almost white. And again, you've got this ice blue lipstick thing going on, which is
so I put that
blue
on all
steel.
The keepers and demonettes, and the face just looked a little bit boring. With, you know, I thought I could do some like crazy eye shadows or, you know, something. I just put the blue lipstick sort of on. I was like, do you know what? I think that's enough.
That works.
With the eyes, because the model's got great eyes as well, because they're bigger. Because it's like a larger sculpt, isn't it? It's like almost a 54mm size model.
It's an amazing model.
Really nice to paint.
Yeah, I was looking at the job you did on the eyes, of really good, and where you've even done a little bit of like under shade on the bottom eyelid. You know,
so they have got that sort of bit of shadow there. I was going to glaze some like purple or blue around the eyes as well, just to you know, add that extra colour. But with the sort of shade in the face already had, I think it was just enough, and I didn't want to like overdo it. I think, you know, you can overcook these things sometimes when you add too many colours.
Yeah, 100%. I really like I really like his robe as well, like round his legs. That was a joy to paint when I did mine.
I'd love painting the robe on it, and it didn't actually take too long. When I started doing it, I thought, this is going to be long, but obviously where I'm painting all the time, I've got a lot quicker at, you know, blending over the years, and you know, just a couple of quick layers, you can get a really effective result on that robe, just because the folds in the robe are
they're so defined, aren't they?
Yeah, they're quite obvious. So I think you could just airbrush it as well and hold it at such an angle that it just misses all of the undersides. And I mean, again, with contrast, it would sit like a couple of washes would sit quite happily on the folds as well.
Well, the Slaanesh army I did was all contrasted, and it went really well over those robes. It looked great. So
yeah, there's you know, those sort of models, you can spend hours on those sort of heroes, and I actually spent quite a lot of time on him because he's big enough that you can airbrush some of it, but he's also small enough that you have to go in and do a lot of brush work. He's not like a traditional monster where a lot of it's big pieces that are separate, and with him I built the entire thing and kept the demonette on top, the herald, separate. But for him, I think it was just his axe that was separate to him, so, you know, his head and the collar and everything was already sort of in place. But I think you could have maybe sub-assembled it a little bit more. But
when I did mine, I kept the demonette on his back banner, and the new sub-assembly was the entire back banner with the demonette stood in it, and
so
him as separate.
I did think about doing that. I kept the back piece and the demonette separate so that I could sort of maneuver her around a little bit more. But that would have worked just as well. But I'd already done it, so I just kept them separate.
And you do you use weathering powder on the base to get that orangey look?
Yeah, so they've got a secret weapon, orange rust, just around the sort of sandy bits on the base, just to break it up and give it another colour.
How do you apply
that
Terry?
with dry or wet, or because I've always applied weathering powder wet, like make a wash out of it and then let it dry and then dust over the top to blend it in if it sort of like needs tide marks, or do you just brush it?
I just use an old brush, pick it up, and then just place it where I want it and just dust it in with the tip of the brush, and then you can seal it afterwards.
I use this stuff, texturizer for AK Interactive. It's like an acrylic resin. It's really good for applying weathering powder. Yeah,
so you can seal it with varnish or isopropanol. So you don't need a lot to seal it down. I'm just trying to think what the other thing people use is. Isopropanol, varnishes. I think there is pigment fixer as well, isn't there? Or just alcohol in general.
Fixer.
Yeah, isopropanol through the airbrush, straight. Just blast it on, and it will look like you've sprayed it all off. But that's just because it's wet and it goes darker. But once it dries and it's fixed, the orange will come back again. I mean, you lose some of it, but you can always just dust a little bit more on afterwards. But like you said, the other way to do it is to make a wash, apply it like a wash, and then it sits in the recesses and forms like quite a natural dusty look anyway.
Yeah, that's how I've used mine in the past. Especially if it's recessed, it's like I've got a neck one here. If it's in the joins there, you can't pick up a model by the internal bits of its joins just by definition. So
so you don't really even need to fix it in a lot of places. To be fair, on those demonettes and stuff, you probably don't actually need to fix it on the base because you can't really touch.
No.
You can't really touch it anyway because
People get picked up by their torsos or their weapons or something.
Yeah, it's in amongst grains of sand, so you're not really going to touch it much at all. But
so with the demonettes, did you airbrush the skin to purple, then just brush in the other detail?
Yeah, so the entire army was sprayed flesh first, then the sunset red, and then the purple. And then I went back and painted all the gold and silver on every single model, and then washed the entire army as well. So at that point, everything was done to the same stage, and then the skin and the metal was done, and then it's a case of just painting the robes, the hair, and the teeth and spikes and bits.
What's the exact flesh recipe, Terry, from start to finish?
So it's the model was spray black, then it's sprayed Tamiya white from above with the airbrush. I probably would have sprayed it white out of a can, but I just didn't have any to hand.
Yeah.
So I don't like using Corax white for doing it because I've just always had bad results with it going quite grainy. So I just white through the airbrush, top down, just to brighten up the top of all the models because they're predominantly quite a bright color scheme. So you want to put the flesh over a white.
Let it pop. Yeah.
It just to really get it to show through. White from above, and then the whole model is effectively sprayed with Kislev flesh. Then it's sprayed top down with bone white, just to sort of brighten up the tops, so that when you put the wash on, there's a good bit of color definition between the the top and bottom of the flesh. Sunset red on all the claws and like limb sort of ends, so the ends of the legs, tails, claws. Then it's the hex lichen towards the end, and then it's just the wash over it, the Druchii Violet, soft tone, Lamia medium, and that's the skin done at that point. On the keepers, I did go back and paint in some highlights on like some of the muscles and bits and pieces, not with like layers or anything, just like really small, subtle, like almost like a glaze over the top, just to make some of the shapes a bit more pronounced.
Pull it up a bit. Yeah.
And you could just go back and dry brush over the skin and stuff as well. Like it just depends what sort of effect you're going for at the end. And then on the claws, I ran like some black through the airbrush right at the ends of the keepers and Shalaxi's claws, just so they were really dark at the end, and I highlighted them with a bit of grey, and then went in, and so the claws on all the bigger stuff is painted with Doomball brown or Battlefield brown from P3, basically the same colour, like a burnt ember brown, burnt umber, I think it's called. Then Xandri dust lines painted onto the claws, and then Wraithbone lines painted on, and then actually on the bigger models, the bigger claws, there's white right at the ends as well, just to get the lines built up. On the Demonettes, it's just Wraithbone painted straight over the purple, but I've just left small lines and some of them so you still get the little lined effect.
Like the weathered sort of bone effect. That
so you paint it on with on horns and teeth and stuff, where you leave sort of smaller lines each time you go up to the next colour. But I didn't see the point in doing 3 stages of bone on each claw and toe
size,
on Demonettes. It's just, you don't need it. You can't even really spot it. If I did it to all of them, I did it to half of them and half the other ones, probably wouldn't even be able to tell until you had the models a few inches from your head.
It's a good
previous layers.
It's a good way to approach an army when you look at something like you got 40 infantry. The predominant areas is going to be the skin blend and the hair, and if you look at the picture that I put up now, which is the unit slightly zoomed out, the claws look fine. You don't see the fact that it's just one colour paint, flat colour really, but then obviously even if you zoom in, it still looks fine because you've got 40 of them. But when you get to something like the Keeper, you want to make sure that the you've put the extra effort in because they're much bigger, and then it's more of a focal model in the army.
Yeah, especially on its claws.
And this is like the thing about army painting, is knowing across an army which areas to highlight, to bring the attention to. It's like faces, bases, and shields, isn't it? It's the kind of the old adage. But
it's like you said about the key element of the Keepers is that if someone walked up to that army on the table and it was set up for display, they wouldn't pick up a Demonette straight away. They'd be looking at the Keepers. They'd be looking at the models that add height. So you want those to be the things that really pop. And then obviously don't scrimp on the Demonettes, but like they don't need to be the same level as the Keeper because they're already drawn in by the Keeper, by the endless spells, by the heroes, and then the Demonettes just need to be painted to like a quality standard like you've done. But it's those, like Russ said, you don't need those levels added to it because it's not what, it's the faces, bases, shields, big monsters. They're the bits that draw people's eye.
Yeah. Like if you look at my Nurgle army, I have done it on every single Plague Bearer. Every single claw is painted in 4 stages of dark brown through to white. And you'll notice that if you pick up each Plague Bearer and have a look, all their claws are painted in 4 layers. But if I'd have just painted the bone and washed them brown, would anyone really notice?
It looks worse. No, I don't think it looks worse. I mean,
it's... Sorry, Ryan, carry on.
I was just going to say that the one thing that you look to have kept, when I do stuff like that, it looks like you've done it here, the basing hasn't changed anywhere, because it faces upwards. It's such a large proportion of the model that is consistent throughout everything, and then you've made your decisions in terms of efficiency on core troops, big things, small things. The smaller things are more forgiving because you have to get in this far to see what's going on in any big stuff, where you would know if something's smooth or not. You've really gone to town on it.
Yeah, to finish off all their eyes as well, I painted them all black and then just put a single white dot in the middle of all the eyes. I think it looks quite dark and quite sinister on the old demons.
Shark eyes, isn't it? Great white shark eyes, which are quite cool.
And then again, it's the same. The Demonettes and the Keepers and everything, they've all got the black eye. With I think actually on the Fiends, I gave them green eyes. I think the eyes were just a bit bigger. Maybe it was just add a bit of colour onto the heads. But
you've not got as much in terms of other stuff to add colour to on those, have you? Because they're just
flesh and claws. Yeah, it's not really a...
I suppose, yeah.
The endless spells you painted as well, didn't you? So you put the black eyes on the because I haven't got a picture of the Fiends to show, so I'm just on the endless spells at the moment. So because obviously they're sort of the face with like the mouth tentacles, that's got like massive big black eyes, isn't it?
Yeah, so I painted them black and then glossed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even bother putting a white dot in them because the gloss will put the dot in for you.
Yeah, you can see in the photo that there's a... Yeah.
It'll because it's such a big rounded surface that it'll highlight itself with the gloss. There's like 2 layers of gloss on it, so they're super glossy. And then obviously they've got like the same flame around it. Like the head has got the pink, purple, and then I did the same. I think I inverted the flame colors actually on the back of the hand with the mirror.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, looking at this.
Yeah, so the mirror actually, it's hard to show it in the picture, but the like the ripples in the mirror when you've got it in your hand look really good. They
you hit them from like a super extreme angle with the brush.
I sprayed them horizontally, and they captured the sort of the peaks with white really nicely, and then I just popped a satin varnish over them just to even it all out. But they were great to paint actually. I thought the ender spells were going to be a bit of a pain to paint because
they look awesome, dude.
The gaps on the hand on the mirror. What's the actual mirror thing called?
I can't remember.
I think it's called the mirror, isn't it? Mesmerizing mirror, is that it?
Yeah, the gaps on the hand that holds that mirror were a bit questionable.
I think
really like lengths, aren't they, and stuff.
I think the endless spells almost feel like they are a bit like that. The kits, they're a little bit more chunky, aren't they? If that's the right
terrain.
word.
It's terrain standard rather than model standard, I think.
Yeah, they were still fun enough to paint though, and I mean the wheel, the blades are effectively just the blades off of a chariot stuck on a base.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot going on for them. Painted them exactly the same way as the rest of the metal.
What satin varnish do you use, Terry? Just out of interest, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and for anyone that's trying to sort of like do the same sort of thing.
If I got it on my desk here, it's literally just Vallejo.
Is it the Vallejo one?
Vallejo satin varnish, yeah. It's one of the bigger bottles. It's in a. It's not the
this
little
sort of
dropper
size.
bottle.
60?
Yes.
That's
I think
the
We've
one
all got
I
it.
use.
Everyone gets the same thing out. There you go. That is the
I've
exact
got
one.
up there. Oh yeah, so
They're
it's
available for
this
element
one,
games,
but this
aren't
is
you?
the gloss. So that's the gloss
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But I've got the satin ones up there as well.
Gloss Brothers. So, yeah.
What if you send Byron a list of the paint scheme that you've used?
Oh,
See
yeah.
if Byron can put together like a bundle that we can put.
We do like a blue, a pink, and a flesh, and then a all-together version.
and like the satin and stuff like that, so then people can
To
get
be
it.
fair, the army
It's
isn't
available
actually
for them.
many colours.
No.
It's,
No, you've done a really good job of restricting it, I think.
yeah, again
Sharing.
with army, you want like
Efficiency, don't you?
very very few colours. There isn't a lot in there. I mean, the green is like half the colours. The gems are like 3 or 4 colours. That's like half the colour palette. So there's some greys and there's not actually a lot in there colour wise. I was just going to say quickly, the other thing I put satin varnish on was the keeper's stockings.
Yeah.
I kind of just wanted them to have that sort of like silky satin stocking look to them because they I don't know whether they're made of flesh or they're meant to be stockings, or it's not very clear like whether they're its own flesh pulled over itself.
That's the sculptors though. That's really good. So you could paint it as like latex or whatever, couldn't you, if you wanted to do it that way?
Yeah,
And then
you
could
could
also
do
do it as
do
like
them black and then go
skin.
on
You know,
so they look like
Yeah.
black leather stockings or whatever. Like you could paint them and
I
put
did
like
mine black.
patterns on them, and there's all sorts you could do with them. But I just sort of made them as if they were transparent.
I quite like the idea that there's somebody's skin. That's kind of disturbing.
yes,
Yeah,
it
I
would
mean-
be cool. Like, imagine doing like dark
Probably
Slaanesh with
are.
like skin-coloured stockings. How cool would that be? Like,
Yeah.
black grey with
Cool.
flesh coloured, like Fabius Bar's cloak, but have all of the stockings like this human flesh. Been
I mean, you
flayed.
could freehand like stitch patterns on them as well to make it look like they were different coloured fleshes as well.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a bit
A
graphic. but-
very, very good video. The JH, I think it's Hidalgo, that painted Emperor's Children's flesh onto Chaos Marine that I'll find the link to and put it in there if you wanted to do that. He's basically done it with contrast paints and line highlighted all of the armor panels so it looks like flesh. So that's really, I mean, it's really easy to do anyway. If you wanted to, it's just a case of like paint it flesh and then have a steady hand and do like a dark brown line and highlight it, and then it looks like that anyway. But it's, I'll put a link in the video.
Just something I'd like to talk about is the epitome, because we haven't really spoke about it much. Put a picture of it up. So when I did mine, I had to do it in sub-assemblies because it's such a complicated model. I think for a lot of hobbyists it might be quite a daunting project. Did you build it all with the two demonettes separately, or did you glue it to the base?
It's 3 pieces I did. So I did the entire mirror.
Yeah, so it's all the metallic bit and the tails into the base.
Yeah. So all of that onto a base.
Yeah.
And then
these
the
two
heralds are
separate. That's exactly what I did, yeah.
Yeah, they sit on nicely afterwards. Their connection points are quite obvious on the model. So you can... what I do when I do these sort of sub-assemblies is I put a bit of blue tack over the connection point. So then when I'm spraying it all, they stay clean plastic. And then obviously right at the end, you just peel the 2 bits of blue tack away. And then you get that nice bit of plastic on plastic to melt together.
Plus it makes it obvious to know where they go, right?
Yeah, and it's your guide as well. But I have recorded all of the stages for the Slaanesh army. So I've got a video for everything, basically, which I'm going to obviously process at some point, but it's like 78 gigabytes of video recorded, so there is going to be a step-by-step on how to paint all of these. So if they do the bundle of the paints, there'll be a video to go along with it as well.
Perfect.
Cool. Right, well, thanks very much for talking through your army. It's really nice. So if you like it, give us a like.
Effective, yeah.
If you want to give us any comments or ask any questions, I'm sure Terry will look at the comments and come back to you. So, well, that'll about wrap up for this video. So thanks for watching along, and let us know what you think.
Awesome. Cool. Cheers.
Cheers.
So do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I was approached on Twitter by, is it Liam Alfred was the name of the guy? I can't remember his Twitter handle, but he was just asking about what my thoughts were behind a Lumineth list that wasn't Techless focused. Now, I'm not going to I'm not going to claim this list as my own, like 100%. It is a list that I've sort of like doctored after discussing with Joe Prasal. Me and Joe like talk lists from time to time. I'm not sure if this is his original list or a friend of his, but it is one that, that me and him discussed, which is quite good. So I'll just run through it like top to bottom, which is the great nation of Ymetrica. I've included the Stoneheart King, which is the special character Alvanor, the big mountain guy with the double hammers, a stone mage, 20 wardens, 15 stone guard, 15 stone guard, 20 sentinels, which are the shooting guys, obviously. That's all your battle line, and then you've got 10 sentinels, 5 dawn riders, and then it all bases around the Alorith Temple, which makes it a 4-drop army, because the king, the stone mage, and both units of the stone guard go into that temple, which allows them to reroll ones for the armor and stuff, I believe. Now that's the other one, the Aurelian region. I can't remember what the actual the Alorith temple does now, but it's look it up in.
Is that a temple or is that a formation you're talking about?
It's a formation.
Formation.
Right.
The battalion's called the Alorith Temple.
Right. Okay. So it's a War Scroll battalion.
Nations.
Yeah.
It's a War Scroll battalion, yeah. It's the whereas in Lumineth it's Great Nations, which is why the top is Ymetrica. So yeah, like the Stone Mage has to take the standard Ymetrica stuff, which is, you get to pick another unit and pile in again with a command ability, and does D3 mortals on 2+ if it doesn't attack in close combat. But if you're going to attack in close combat, you're in trouble. So yeah, like the whole idea around it is that it's obviously quite low drop. Ymetrica makes the Alorith Guard, because they're part of they've got the Alorith keyword, means that they're like ignore rend, reduce rend by 2. So you've got 2 units that are quite fighty, ignoring rend by 2. The Stoneheart King's command ability is pick D3 alpha units and increase their attacks by 1. You can't pick the same unit more than once. So in this situation, you'd be making the Stone Mallet guys, increase their attacks from 2 to 3.
Is that in the combat
which
phase,
gives you
that
then-
ability, Les?
I believe it is a combat phase. I can't
Yeah,
remember when
probably
the actual the wording is, but you've got that plus the Aether Quartz ability that allows them to, like, reroll ones and stuff like that. So it makes them really reliable. Any 6s do damage 2 as well with the Stone Guard on the mallets. I didn't go picks. Also, because you're picking D3 Alvin units, that time that you roll the 3, you then put it on the Wardens as well, which means that your Shining Company of 20 guys are going to be sat there on an objective, with an additional attack. If the enemy charge them, they're like -1. They're -1 to hit. They're rend. Dave, a couple of the spells that I put on there has been quite, I've sort of like made sure that I've covered all bases with the spells that each unit has. So the Stone Mage has Voice of the Mountain, which is relatively, there's no way of guaranteeing that you're going to get these spells off because you've not got Techless and not got any buffs. So it is quite difficult still. But Voice of the Mountain, basically, in that turn, you reduce your enemies' give them +2 to battle shock or reduce their bravery by 2. Then, for the battle range, it then drops to 1. I've got Total Eclipse on the Wardens, which which looking at it, I probably wouldn't put it on the Wardens. I'd give them Ethereal Blessing. So a lot of the stuff in the army is very resilient, being the you ignore and rend 2 with the Aether Quartz, you can buff your ability to stay alive. If you give the Wardens Ethereal Blessing and that spell goes off, it means that they essentially are ethereal, so they're -1 to hit if they're still Shining Company. Makes them really survivable. The Sentinels, then I'd swap it out and I'd give them Total Eclipse. Quite a high cast value. And maybe they probably wouldn't be casting it on themselves because they'd be looking for the doing mortal wounds on a 5 for their sun metal weapons. But Total Eclipse is something that I think you need in a Lumineth first.
What does Total Eclipse do?
Essentially, Total Eclipse is make every command point your opponent spend. So if it costs 1 command point, it costs 2. Cast on an 8, I believe.
Would you put it on the wall on the Sentinels though? Because surely they're going to be casting the buff every turn, aren't they?
I've basically just put it on the list. I'm just juggling it as I'm reading off of my list in front of me, but I would have it on a different unit. You've got the other unit of Sentinels. I've given them Lambent Light because they're a unit of 10, not a unit of 20. So they'd be the unit that would be casting Lambent Light for the 20 then to try and kill the key hero with the mortal wounds on the 5s. I've also got Speed of Hish on the Dawn Riders. Again, Speed of Hish can be cast on somebody else, and my theory would be you'd keep the Dawn Riders behind behind your screens, maybe using Speed of Hish to get your unit of 20 Sentinels in range, like Peter mentioned in his other unit, but also those key turns when you need to get around and score objectives, the Dawn Riders cast it on themselves and give themselves like a 26-inch move plus run and charge. They don't run and charge, so they're like plus run or charge. So it's quite...
So the Speed of Hish double their move?
Double their move, yeah. So, and they move 14, so 28-inch move. So they're very fast, which is quite handy. And then you've got the Stoneheart King, and, you keep him next to the Stone Mage, you keep him next to the King. Obviously, one of the abilities on the Stone Mage the King, is that if he's next to a Stone Mage, he fights at the top banding. So if he's taking damage, he doesn't then degrade his attacks. And he's very, very handy. I think it's 6 attacks, rend 2, damage 5.
Does he have an AoE ability, or is that the other big dude? Is he the one who's got -1 to hit?
They've all got -1 to hit. I think when they've all got -1 to hit because of what they are, and he's also got a really powerful shooting attack, which is handy. But he's very, very combat. Yeah. So the idea being is that you double tap with the Stone Guard. So because obviously the speed of light in Lumineth is that you activate 2 for your enemy's 1. So if you're not facing an always strike first army, you put your 2 Stone Guard units into a unit, and they go twice after you buff them with the D3 with the attacks from the King, or you double tap with a Stone Guard unit and the King, and then decimate that unit because they both go. and you always make sure that you stack the odds in your favour, if that makes sense. So you'd always go 2-on-1 or 4-on-2, so that you get the opportunity to go twice, if that makes sense. Without Techers in the list, you've actually got quite a lot of bodies, so I think it's not bad in scenario play. I would have liked to include another unit of Dawn Riders. That would be the thing that I would maybe have included. But I think the 20 Sentinels is so key to killing your opponent's support heroes, that it's better to have those 20 Sentinels and only have one unit of Dawn Riders as opposed to having two. Dawn Riders may be a bit more flexible in scenario play, but I think 20 shots, mortal wounds on 5s, don't need line of sight, 30-inch range plus a move, 36-inch range. You're going to kill the support heroes that you need to.
So if you got just to remind me, because I've maybe lost track a little bit. So you've got the Wardens, like your battle line, aren't they? And you've got these stonemason guys. Are they what? How many of those have you got?
Yeah, so you've got 20 Wardens who are battle line. 2 units of 15 Stone Guard who are also battle line in Geometrica.
Right.
Then I've got 20 Sentinels who are count as battle line because the Wardens class them. So you've got 4 battle line. Then you've got another unit of 10 Sentinels, and then a unit of 5 Dawn Riders. Now, the King, the Stone Mage, the Stone Guard all fit in the Alrath Temple Battalion that I've included.
You could potentially have a 2-drop, couldn't you, if you took the other formation, which is a Kevlar, and the 2 units of Sentinels, 2 units of Wardens, with a bit of jiggling around with the points, as one of your formations, and then the other formation? Or is there Wardens in that formation?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is where you cut that, the 120 points. I think 20 Sentinels killing support characters is probably better than just having 2 units of 10. I mean, you could maybe drop it down to do 20 and just have a unit of 20 and get rid of the 10. And then that's
you'd have to have 2 units, wouldn't you, for the formation? You need 2 Wardens, 2 Sentinels. So
yeah, so okay, you'd have to split it out. I guess 2 10s may be flexible. I just like the idea of making sure that something's dead with the 25 ups, and also casting the Lambent Light, allowing you to fish for those 5s. You're just going to kill the support characters, aren't you?
I'd probably end up dropping the Dawn Riders if it was me.
Yeah, I keep looking at the Dawn Riders because initially it was 2 units of 20 Sentinels, but the
different
Dawn
type of
Riders,
list, though, then, isn't it? You're pretty well rounded at this point. That's one of the nice things about it. Like we were talking about secondaries, and
in fact, I'm trying
this list
because you
has
can't
a lot
fit
of options for all.
Yeah, you can't fit it when you drop the Dawn Riders because the Sentinels are 140 and the Dawn Riders are 130. I thought it was at 1990, but I'm not at 2000. But yeah, I think it's quite well rounded. I actually quite like the idea of it. I think it'd be fun to play.
I think so.
It does a little bit of everything. It's quite combat heavy, quite shooty. I think you maybe struggle in some hero missions, but the King's quite hard to kill.
So he's a hero, is he, the big King?
Yeah, the big King, the hero, yeah. So, why he's not the general. So you've got the Stone Mage as the general, the guy that's cross-legged on the floaty stones. So yeah, I think it'd be quite fun. I think again it would reward someone playing a lot of games with it because of the knowing when to burn your Aether Quartz, knowing when to double tap and use the speed of light. But, it looks fun. Maybe something I'd like to try in the future, I think.
Yeah,
there's
quite
some people
interesting.
experimenting with this type of thing at the moment. Like, if people are trying it out and have got thoughts and alterations or whatever, they can let us know. And I'm sure Les would love to put together some more horses if there's a full Dawn Rider version.
Yeah, I love those horses so much.
Yeah, I definitely would want to build at least 40 of those before I die, which is probably how long it would take me to get them finished. So I don't know.
Them, Brian. I don't want any more.
I built 5 and they took me basically a day to build 5 horses. I just honestly, I think maybe because I did picked up 2 pieces, cleaned them up, and then had to take an hour break to think about my life, and then come back and do the next 2 bits. So I'm not. I honestly, Luminef. No, not for me. Not for me at all. But
They never were there, were they? You didn't, even when we play tested them, you were like, no, they don't quite tickle your balls. So
no.
You got Bubbleman, dude. You don't need anything else.
Yeah. Boats and guns. I was going to say boats and something else, but that's not PC. So
worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So that's quite interesting. So hopefully, when those models are out, you'll be able to get that together and play some games with it. So
I would love to, but I honestly, because I'm painting a Luminef army for Brian, when all these models are out, I'm painting all those for Brian, so I can't see me getting my Luminef on the table any time quickly because it's going to be a case of
borrow it. Yeah.
We'll see. So I'm going to do Brian's stuff and then chip away at mine. But like me and you've discussed about, after seeing like the really good job you've done with your Necron bases, I'm going to probably rebase my Stormcast. I like the points drops, rebase my Stormcast, and then start looking into Stormcast list because I think they're quite competitive with the General's Handbook points drops, especially if you factor in some bits like Shadow Warriors like we did on the last show. Maybe not a 5 and 5, but I definitely think it'd be a fun 4 and 1 or 3 and 2.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'd be a good army. But cool. Well, I think if that's everything, we can wrap the show up there. If you're happy with that. So
yeah, I think that's happy. Like, so yeah, hopefully Liam likes it, and if he doesn't, then that's unfortunate.
Well, you can let us know, and Les can go back to the drawing board and write a better list. So
I'll slide into Darren Watson's DM to write it.
Get someone else to write it and just call it the Les Martin list. Is that a change of spear?
He's right.
Yeah.
Just change the halberd to a great weapon. There you go. That's an old school reference.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another show shortly. So thanks very much, and take it easy, guys.
Cool. See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah.